You shaking? Or just scared of the floor? The voice came from behind the rehab desk, young, impatient, loud enough to carry. The old man paused, not because he was confused, not because he was weak, but because he'd heard that tone before. In barracks, in briefings, in the quiet mockery of those who'd never had to limp home. His hands trembled on the old walker. The wheels were stiff, one handle was wrapped in tape, and a faded strip of American flag ribbon hung loosely from the right side. The therapist sighed, dragging the walker a few inches forward. If you can't hold it, maybe this program's not for you. The man didn't answer. He shifted forward. The metal frame creaked with every step. Across the room, a young nurse assistant stopped writing. She watched, then glanced around. No one else seemed to notice or care. The man's second step was slower. His left knee faltered. The flag ribbon slipped from the walker and landed softly on the tile. The therapist didn't pick it up. He nudged it aside with his foot, like trash. The man looked down, then kept walking. No protest, no complaint. Just the kind of silence they don't teach in books, the kind you earn. Before we continue, where are you watching from today? This story means more when I know who's listening. I read every comment, really. He arrived every Thursday, never early, never late, always alone. The intake nurse marked his name without looking up. Just a line on a clipboard. One more patient in a hallway full of them. His name was Ernest Keller, 76 years old, stroke survivor, U.S. Army, retired. He said little, nodded when spoken to, moved slowly, with a deliberate steadiness that made the younger patients shift in their seats, unsure if they were witnessing struggle or discipline. The walker was old, rust around the hinges, scratches down the front legs, and that ribbon on the side. Blue, frayed at the edges, folded but never quite straight. Most people ignored it. Most people, except Kevin. Kevin was the lead therapist, fresh out of grad school, fit, quick, always talking just a bit too loud, always rushing sessions like there was somewhere more important to be. "Let's keep it moving, Keller," he said that morning. "We've got a full house." Ernest said nothing, just tightened his grip on the walker and followed. The room was too bright. Tile floors, metal bars, the constant hum of machines and chatter. Kevin gestured toward the parallel bars. "Same routine, 10 paces, pause, 10 back, if you can." He added the last part like a whisper meant to be heard. Ernest approached the bars, one hand after the other, the tremor in his right arm more pronounced today. But he moved without help. "You okay there?" Kevin asked, arms crossed. "You're shaking more than usual. Cold? Nervous?" Still, no answer. A young woman stood near the supply rack, watching quietly. Sophia, an intern, new to the clinic. Her eyes lingered on the ribbon. It wasn't standard. It wasn't part of any rehab protocol. But someone had tied it there, deliberately. Kevin turned to the other patients. "Make sure you're watching your own reps, folks. We're not a retirement lounge." Someone chuckled. Sophia didn't. Ernest reached the end of the bars, turned, came back. Halfway through, his knee buckled slightly, his hand slipped. He didn't fall. He caught himself, straightened, kept moving. Kevin didn't notice. Sophia did. Later, during the cool-down phase, Kevin approached again, clipboard in hand. "You know," he said, voice casual, "we do have newer walkers available. Yours is kind of prehistoric." Ernest looked at him for the first time. "I brought my own," he said, steady, simple. Kevin smirked. "Yeah, I can tell. Looks like it's been through a war." Ernest didn't blink. "It has." The smirk faded. He turned and walked off without another word. Sophia stepped over slowly. She crouched beside the walker, gently adjusting the ribbon. "Was it yours?" she asked. "No," Ernest said. "Belonged to someone who didn't come home." He didn't explain further, and she didn't ask. Outside, the wind pressed gently against the windows. Leaves stirred in the parking lot. Inside, the man with trembling hands sat in silence. Not weak, just full of weight no one else could see. The next Thursday, Ernest returned. Same time, same silence. The same walker, its wheels cleaned, the ribbon tied back in place. Tighter now, like it had something to prove. Kevin glanced up from his tablet when Ernest entered. "Back for more, huh?" No greeting. No warmth. Just noise pretending to be attention. Ernest nodded once and made his way to the rehab floor. It was louder today. A new patient cried out during leg stretches. Machines beeped. Someone spilled a water bottle and a tech sighed, too annoyed to clean it right away. The clinic felt mechanical, impatient. Kevin motioned him over. "Let's work on turns today. Pivot, lift, balance, not just shuffle forward. We want grace, not just survival." He grinned like it was a joke. Ernest adjusted the walker and began, one slow pivot. His right foot dragged slightly. The tremor in his hands wasn't as visible when he was focused. But Kevin noticed anyway. "Maybe you're not ready for this level," he muttered. Ernest finished the turn and said nothing. The room moved around him, but Sophia stood still, watching. She stayed near the charting station, one page in her hand, the other resting on the rail of the parallel bars. That day, a new man arrived, younger, mid-30s, angry. His name was Miguel, a recent amputation. Left leg above the knee. He didn't want to be there. Everything in his posture said so. Kevin handed him a set of balance poles. "You'll be working alongside our veterans. Good motivation, right?" Miguel rolled his eyes. He caught sight of Ernest nearby. Looked him up and down. "Is this the part where I'm supposed to feel lucky?" he muttered. Ernest didn't react. Miguel gritted his teeth and started walking. Every few steps he cursed under his breath, loud enough to be heard, but just short of confrontation. Kevin ignored him. "Let the frustration fuel you, man. That's what they always say." Ernest moved slowly across the floor, his path intersecting Miguel's. At one point, Miguel stumbled, barely catching himself. Ernest, without a word, steadied his walker and stepped aside to give him room. Miguel looked at him. "You think I'm going to be like you someday?" Ernest paused. "No," he said softly. "I think you'll be better." Miguel scoffed and moved on. Kevin watched from the corner, amused. Later, during cool-down, Kevin passed by Ernest again. "You know," he said, a little louder this time, "there's talk about freeing up space, prioritizing patients who actually progress. You might want to consider moving to a lower-intensity track." Ernest didn't reply. He just lowered himself onto the bench, carefully, with precision earned from necessity. Sophia came over during break. She held a clipboard but didn't look at it. "I saw what you did," she said. "With him." Ernest looked up. "You didn't say anything," she continued, "but I think he heard you anyway." Ernest offered the smallest nod. Behind them, Miguel sat alone on the far side of the room, adjusting his temporary prosthetic with clenched fists. Kevin scrolled through his tablet, ignoring them all. And somewhere between the fluorescent lights and tiled floors, the weight of being dismissed settled deeper into Ernest's bones. It wasn't the kind of pain anyone wrote down on charts, but it stayed. It happened on a Wednesday. Not Ernest's usual day. He wasn't on the schedule, he wasn't expected, but he came anyway. Not to train, not to be seen. Just to sit in the waiting area, hands folded over the top bar of his walker, eyes calm. Miguel was there. Still angry, still sore. His new prosthetic had arrived the day before, and it didn't fit right. Every step was a battle. He kept adjusting it, yanking at the strap, swearing under his breath. Kevin approached from behind. "Don't baby it. It's supposed to hurt." Miguel snapped. "Easy for you to say. You've still got your leg." Kevin didn't flinch. "You've got to want the result more than you hate the process." Miguel glared. "That's supposed to be deep?" Kevin shrugged and walked off. Miguel sat down on a padded bench, massaging the edge of the socket where it rubbed raw. His walker leaned against the wall beside him. One of the standard clinic-issued models, nothing special. Cold gray, too tall, wobbly. Ernest watched from across the room, then stood, slowly, deliberately. His old walker made its familiar sound, that gentle metallic creak, as he crossed the floor. Miguel looked up, annoyed. Ernest stopped beside him. No fanfare, no speech. He gently turned his own walker toward the younger man. Then, with practiced hands, he unfastened the side stabilizer bar, a custom piece, slightly worn, but solid. Miguel frowned. "What are you doing?" Ernest didn't answer. He crouched, slowly, carefully, and began attaching the stabilizer to Miguel's walker. His hands trembled, but his movements were exact. Miguel stared. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," Ernest said. Silence stretched between them. Then Miguel asked, "Why?" Ernest tightened the final screw. "Because someone did it for me." Sophia had stepped into the hallway just in time to see it. She stopped, said nothing, just watched. Miguel looked at the walker. It was steadier now. Felt more his. He swallowed something sharp in his throat. Ernest stood back up, one hand gripping his now modified walker, now missing a piece, now slightly harder to use. Miguel opened his mouth to say something, but Ernest just nodded and walked away. Every step required more effort. The walker wobbled a bit, but he didn't complain. He didn't ask for it back. In the corner, Kevin glanced up, then back at his tablet. Sophia knelt beside Miguel a moment later, testing the new adjustment. "It's working," she said. He didn't answer right away. Then, "Yeah, it is." That evening, Ernest didn't sign out. No badge scan, no check mark. He simply left, quietly. The receptionist only noticed because she saw the empty slot in the rack where his patient card usually hung. And something else. The ribbon on his walker, the one that had fallen a week ago, was gone. He hadn't reattached it. Or maybe he had, just to something that could carry it forward. Sophia had seen enough. She waited until the floor quieted, then walked straight into the clinic director's office. She wasn't sure if interns were supposed to request meetings, but this felt bigger than protocols. She placed the patient file on his desk. "Ernest Keller," she said, "I think you should look at this." The director, Dr. Raymond Ellis, took the file with mild curiosity. Mid-50s, professional, but tired. The kind of tired that comes from years of rules and routines. He flipped through the intake pages, then stopped. There it was. Staff Sergeant. 3 tours. Silver Star, Bronze Star with Valor, Combat Medical Badge. He looked up. Why didn't anyone flag this? Sophia hesitated. Because no one asked. Dr. Ellis leaned back in his chair. He was quiet for a long time. The next day, Kevin was called into a private office. He wasn't smiling when he came out. But that wasn't the moment that changed everything. That came the following Thursday. Ernest wasn't there. But Miguel was. And this time he wore a uniform, khaki jacket, clean lines, pinned with a single commendation ribbon and a small silver cross on his collar. He'd been a reservist, just part-time once, nothing special by most standards. But that day he looked like someone who carried weight with purpose. He walked in, not with defiance, but intent. His gait was still uneven, but strong. Kevin looked up, eyes narrowing. "Didn't know we had a ceremony planned." Miguel didn't answer. He approached the center of the floor. Every head turned, not because of what he wore, but how he wore it. In his hands, he carried something wrapped in cloth. "Doctor..." Ella stepped out from the hallway and nodded toward Sophia. She joined them as Miguel unwrapped the item, the old stabilizer bar, now polished, cleaned, and engraved. On its underside, "For the man who walked before me." Sophia handed it to Dr. Ellis, who turned to face the room. "This was once considered scrap metal," he said, "but in the right hands, it became support. In the right moment, it became service." Kevin shifted uncomfortably in the back of the room. Dr. Ellis continued, "We talk about rehab as recovery, but what Mr. Keller gave was something more, a quiet act of dignity that no one asked for and no one celebrated. Until now." He nodded toward the hallway. Ernest had arrived. Not in uniform, not with medals. just as he always had, steady, silent, worn, and walking. Miguel approached him. "I came to give this back," he said, holding out the engraved piece. Ernest looked down. His hands didn't shake. "No," he said quietly. "It's yours now." Miguel hesitated, then stepped closer. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, the ribbon, pressed, clean, wrapped in clear plastic, preserved. "This is yours." Ernest took it. His fingers lingered on the cloth. Kevin stepped forward, unsure. "Mr. Keller," but Dr. Ellis raised a hand. "Not now." Kevin stopped. Miguel turned to face the others. "I didn't want to be here," he said. "Didn't think I needed this place, but one man changed that, not with words, not with speeches, just with an old walker and a quiet example." The room stayed still. No clapping, no cheering, just something better. Stillness. Respect. Ernest nodded once to Miguel, and that was enough. If you believe moments like this still matter, and that quiet dignity deserves to be seen, consider subscribing. We tell stories for people who still care. The hallway was empty again. Late afternoon light spilled through the high windows, casting long shadows on the tile. The clinic had quieted, machines powered down, therapy bands coiled, clipboards shelved. Ernest remained behind, not because he had to, but because he always stayed a little longer. He sat on the bench by the exit, adjusting the grip tape on his walker. One of the front wheels squeaked. The stabilizer bar was gone now, given, not loaned. The frame wobbled slightly with the shift of his weight. Still, he didn't ask for a replacement. Miguel entered the corridor, now dressed in jeans and a plain gray sweatshirt. But his stride still carried the memory of the uniform. He walked over and sat beside Ernest. "You coming back next week?" Miguel asked. Ernest didn't answer right away. Then, "You still need the bar?" Miguel smiled. "Not anymore." Ernest nodded. Miguel reached into his backpack, pulled out a package, long, narrow, wrapped in cloth. He offered it. Ernest hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a new stabilizer bar, custom cut, painted deep navy blue, with a small engraving near the base. Keller, still standing. Below it, a ribbon, the same one, had been re-sewn along the side, stitched carefully, like someone had taken their time. Ernest ran his fingers over the fabric. Miguel stood. "I owe you more than balance," he said. "I owe you a new way of walking." He turned and stepped away, slower this time, like he didn't want the moment to end too quickly. Sophia passed by with a stack of folders in her arms. She paused, watched the exchange from a distance, said nothing. Ernest stayed seated for a while. Then, slowly, deliberately, he stood. He fitted the new bar into place, adjusted the straps, smoothed the ribbon, and began walking. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't fast, but it was steady. Outside the window, a flag lifted gently in the breeze above the parking lot, barely moving but held high. As Ernest reached the front door, he passed a wall of plaques, names, years, donations. One frame had been added that morning. Plain wood, no gold trim. Inside was a photo, an old walker standing alone against the therapy wall. Below it, a small plate read, "Some hands tremble, but they still carry others." Ernest stopped, just for a second, then continued forward. Not to be remembered, but to remember. If this story moved you, type "still walking" in the comments. Your voice matters, and I read every single one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, here's your quiet reminder. Thank you for being here. Because sometimes the strongest support comes from the hands that never ask to be noticed. And the dignity that lingers is the one carried in silence.